So today will be the first lecture for reading 38. Working capital management. We are doing corporate finance, and within corporate finance we have covered different readings. The first reading which we covered was corporate governance. Second is second capital budgeting, cost of capital, leverages, and now we are in the last reading of this subject of this, that reading is named as reading number 38, and the name of this reading is working capital management. So my dear friends, we are going to start with the last reading of corporate finance, and this will change your life. Come on, let's start with reading number 38, reading 38, and this reading tells me something about working capital management. That what is working capital management? What is the meaning of working capital management? The most important reading and highly testable reading. And there are seven learning outcome A, learning outcome B, learning outcome C, learning outcome D, E and F. And all these learning outcomes are revolving around what are the sources of short-term and long-term liquidity. How to calculate what are the sources from where we can have short-term and long-term liquidity. What are the benchmarks to measure the liquidity measures, or to compare those liquidity measures with your peer companies, with the competitors. What is how working capital is affected, or what is the effectiveness of working capital from the point of view of operating cycle, cash conversion cycle, what is management of accounts receivable, how we manage accounts payable, and all that related with working capital and the comparison of yield measures. So my dear friends, let me assure you that if you will attend these 7 or 8 lectures, small lectures, I can assure you that I will be able to clear all your concepts, whether you are from science side, whether you are an engineer, whether you are an MBA, whether you are a non-commerce guy, it hardly matters. Let's start. But the condition is, you have to open your curriculum. Firstly, you have to see that how many learning outcomes are there. Because of copyright issue, in the beginning of the lectures I cannot show you the curriculum. I will show it in the 4th or 5th lecture. But mind you, please keep your curriculum in front of you and please open your register. That is the most important source, because you are writing by your own handwriting. So let's start with the thing. Let's start with working capital management. Now, before I start with working capital management, I want to give you an example of, supposedly you are doing CFA Level 1 curriculum and you are an aspirant of CFA Level 1. You want to give for June or December, and for doing this CFA examination, or for preparing for CFA examination, there are some funds are required. Some funds are required by a CFA aspirant. It is very simple that funds are required for anything. For a chole bhature wala, for a tea maker, for a tea stall, for a vegetable vendor to Tata Steel, funds are required. Now the point is, I'm sorry, as a CFA aspirant, why funds are required, or how much funds are required? What are the reasons of those funds? I repeat, because you have to pay examination fees, and that is in dollars. And again, you have to purchase your study material, or with a private source you can download it, get it print out. Some expenses will be required. Or you want to purchase squares and notes, or I can say you have to pay for me for my video lectures. It all total is roundabout, I am saying, 1 lakh Indian rupees. Now, this 1 lakh Indian rupee is because you have already registered for a CFA institute, that cannot be refunded back. You have already purchased the study material, that cannot be refunded back. And even you have purchased my video lectures, that cannot be refunded back. This is a long-term or a fixed investment. But along with that, you have to do some short-term investment. Your funds will be required for short-term requirement also. Because daily you need some breakfast, some protein, some carbohydrates, some tea, and some registers, and internet availability for running these lectures. It means there is some revenue expenditure also. It means there is some operating expenses also. Now there are three types of activities which we did in cash flow statement and financial reporting: operating activities, investing activities, and financial activities. Operating activities, investing activities, financial activities. When I say operating activities, can you tell me what are the operating activities for Apollo Tires, or what are the operating activities of Maruti Suzuki, or what are your operating expenses as a CFA aspirant? So when I say Apollo Tires, buying of rubber from Kerala, manufacturing of that rubber, paying of electricity expenses, paying of factory rent, paying the salary to the employees, and all that related with operating activities, these are operating activities of Apollo Tires. So these expenses are to be met on day-to-day or daily or periodical basis. These are recurring in nature. You have to again and again you have to incur. It means funds are required by Apollo Tires for two reasons. One is for constructing land and building, for purchasing plant and machinery, and second is for running that plant and machinery. Some electricity is required, some raw material is required, some employees are required, power is required, and other overheads are required. So these something to run that is named as working capital. As the name indicates, working capital. That capital which is required for working, that capital which is required for working, that is short-term requirements. That is named as working capital. Now, from where working capital can be financed, whether it can be financed from short-term source or whether it is to be financed from long-term source, it is a big question to you. Now, for that you have to manage. So that topic is named as working capital management. My dear friends, we're going to start with a new reading 38, and the name of that reading is Working Capital Management, that how you can manage working capital. From what are the sources, from how you can block your working capital, what are current assets, what are current liabilities, what is the meaning of accounts payable, what is the meaning of accounts receivable, what is cash, what is inventory, what is cash conversion cycle, what is working capital cycle, what is operating cycle, how to manage it, what are the yield measures, what is bond yield, all something we will be doing in these 6 or 7 lectures. So I will be taking a separate lecture for each learning outcome. So today, no point, I am not going to start even learning outcome number 8. I want to give a brief idea. I want to give you a brief introduction that what is the working capital. When I say working capital, I can give you so many examples so that you can get an idea that what is working capital. For example, you want to purchase a nano, lakh takiya. In India, we say that nano as a lakh takiya because it costs 1 lakh rupees, lakh takiya. Now to buy that lakh takiya, that nano car, Tata Motors, manufactured by Tata Motors Nano, you require 1 lakh rupees, Indian rupees. Now to run that car, you require expenses, you require some funds for filling petrol, you require something for that running. That petrol expenses for running that nano is named as working capital. So I repeat, funds are required due to 2 reasons, my dear friends. Please open your registers. I'm actually giving you the brief idea of working capital management. Please sit straight and please start reading, please start writing something which I'm just again and again I'm repeating for you so that those concepts can go in your mind, and I'm giving you brief or natural examples. I have given the example of Apollo Tires. I have given the example of C aspirant. Now I want to give you an example of nano I have just given. So funds are required for 2 reasons, my dear friends. One is long term. One is capital expenditure. And second is capital expenditure means capital budgeting decisions. We did in the capital budgeting also that those decisions which are long term in nature. Starting a new factory, starting a new venture, going for expansion, going for replacement. That all is capital budgeting because these decisions take longer period. These decisions are to some extent irreversible. They are non-recurring in nature. But if I see from the other aspect, funds are required for two reasons. One is long term and second is short term. When I say short term, I mean working capital. When I say working capital, I mean those funds which are the lifeblood of any organization. Without that lifeblood, a healthy body even cannot work. Because that is the blood which flows regularly in the veins of a human body. That blood, life blood which is flowing within the organization again and again, that is named as working capital. So my dear friends, I want to start with this chapter working capital, and I want that you should write down something. I have already prepared handwritten slides so that time can be saved. So let's come on. Let's start with the writing part. I just want to show you so many slides I have prepared for that. If you just write down, I will feel happy. Please write down reading 38. This is lecture number 1. Great morning. Working capital management. There are 7 learning outcomes which we will be going to cover. Learning outcome A to F. We have to cover seven learning outcomes, and I have just told you that we will be covering short-term and long-term sources of liquidity, and then the liquidity measures to be compared with your peer companies, then net of cash operating cycle and net operating cycle, effectiveness of working capital. Like this, we will be covering so many learning outcomes. We will be discussing 7 or 8 lectures and then 2 lectures for practical problems. My dear friend, due to some copyright issues, I am not able to upload all the videos in YouTube, and also in the beginning, in the first initial videos which I want to upload, I am not showing you CFA study material. I am not showing you anything that, because that again is coming in copyright. So for 2 or 3 lectures, I will be showing you this matter. Now let's start, and other demo videos I am uploading in Google Drive. And the same link I will share with you. So please write down, I think you must have written this. Just write in first point. An entity, an organization, an individual, an sole proprietor, a partnership firm, a limited liability firm, a limited company, a private company, a cooperative society, a NGO, a social club, any entity require funds for 2 reasons, long term and short term. When I say long term, it also means capital expenditure. When I say short term, it also means working capital. Within short term, I have written recurring expenses. Now point number 2. Please, my dear friends, please write down, don't try to be over smart. Because if you will write down, it will save your time, and there is no need to read the CFA curriculum in that case with so many pages in smaller fonts. Please write this. Working capital is required for smooth functioning of operating activities and to meet revenue expenses. And to meet revenue expenses, operating activities, smooth functioning, day-to-day operations, that something is named as working capital. Now, I have just told you working capital. When I say working capital, I also mean current assets and current liabilities. For example, to run an entity, to run a chole bhature wala shop, or to run a small, any tea stall, I require some raw material, I require some inventory, I require milk, I require sugar, I require tea leaves, I require water. That's something which I require in a tea stall. I have just given an example. That is current assets. Inventory. So please write an example. Funds required or invested or blocked. Required, I have used the first word. The second word, invested. The third word, blocked. So another same thing. Required, invested or blocked in inventory, current assets, accounts receivable, cash balance, etc. That is named as current assets. So I will be showing you again 2 case studies. First is Kingfisher Airline. Now I want to show you it is because of poor working capital management. And I want to show you what is the importance of working capital. With the help of this video, I want to show you one video, and that video does not have audio because I have just closed that audio part, because again it will come in copyright. So just see to it, and we will discuss that what are the things which are there. They are mentioning Kingfisher Airlines. I want to show you Kingfisher Airline video, and just see and think from the aspect of working capital management, that how Vijay Mallya not able to pay the salaries even of the air hostesses, not even to pay the salaries of captains or rental expenses of airport authorities. And it means it is not the long term expenses, it is not the capital expenses, it is not the capital budgeting, it is not the car, rather something which is required to run that whole system. That is more important. And big organizations fail because of working capital management, poor management. So just see to it, and then we will discuss what this video says. Vijay Mallya, Kingfisher in trouble. No, this video you can directly you can see from the YouTube also. Because of copyright issue, I am not increasing the volume. KFA, Kingfisher Airlines faces license cancellation. Why they are facing license? These all are air hostesses. They are having a candle walk because. Why they are having a candle walk? Because the Vijay Mallya Kingfisher Airline has not paid their salaries for so many months. Just see to it.
They do not have any confidence left in the authorities, and which is why they do not want
put on notice.
Meetings, because meetings are not fruitful.
The lender's decision to release 60 crore.
All these captains, pilots, they are standing.
Kingfisher says
all these are the Kingfisher Airline air hostesses. Wage bill at Kingfisher is 20 crore rupees per month. 20 crore rupees per month is just the wage bill. So because of that poor working capital management, that wages, to pay the wages, that is nothing but working capital. The funds required for day-to-day expenses, because recurring expenses, because wages you have to pay every month, even those funds are not there. And it is because of this, the big company flown down, liquidate like anything. Half of the employees were paid in March. Employees owed at least 130 crores. It means they are not being paid from last 6 months. Even cannot pay that Kingfisher Airline, not able to pay the rental expenses of airport authorities. So the point is that this video, as per this video, I just want to show you that how is important working capital management. So in today's lecture, we'll be discussing with what is the working capital, and for that I want to explain you the real case study. So please write on one case study. I'm taking the example of an individual. Mr. Ramlal. He has started his own business. He is an individual. He has started as a sole proprietor and he wants to start his own business. A small stall, a book stall, or tea stall, or any stall, and able to have $1,000 of capital. Able to collect total funds from his friend, from his own pocket, $1,000. Now, out of that $1,000, what he did, I just want to show you. Firstly, write on this case study. Suppose Mr. X, I have prepared Mr. X, has started a new business and able to generate $1,000 as capital. Now, what he did out of 1,000, he bifurcated 1,000 as capital into two parts. One is $700, part one is $700 and part two is $300. Now that $700 he utilized, supposedly I'm just taking a hypothetical example, that $700 he utilizes for land, for purchasing land, for purchasing building, or for buying plant and machinery. So all these expenses which I have written for $700, he has invested in long-term requirements. He has invested in capital requirements. That is a longer requirement. But he kept $300 for his day-to-day needs. Now can you tell me why he has kept $300 for his day-to-day needs? Now this $300 which he kept separate, that is named as working capital. Because he knows that to run a stall, to run a business, he requires some funds, idle investments to run that smooth functioning. So that's something which he kept idle for day-to-day expenses is named as working capital. So please prepare a flow chart. $1,000 utilized in, $700 in this, and $300 in this. And then from $300, what he did, I have given different scenarios for that. The first scenario is for that $300 scenario one is he has broken into two parts. He has purchased some inventory of $200 and he kept cash as idle balance as $100. Again, his current assets is $300. No doubt he has broken into inventory and cash. Inventory is also a current asset and cash is also a current asset. Is an example of current asset. So in this scenario also working capital is 300 even if it is broken into two parts. Working capital is total of current assets. Up to this scenario 1 and scenario 2, we will say working capital is total of current assets, and then after that I will tell you working capital is total of current assets minus total of current liabilities. But for that we have to see scenario 3. But firstly go in scenario 1. $300 can be broken into two parts, $200 and $100. $300 he has, out of $200 he has purchased inventory, and for $100 he has kept cash as idle. So working capital is $300, that is total of all current assets. And in scenario 2, supposedly inventory of 200, out of that inventory of $200, $100 of inventory he has processed and converted into finished product and sold to a debtor. I repeat, out of 200 inventory, he has converted $100 inventory and processed it and converted it into finished good and sold it on credit to a debtor named as accounts receivable. Accounts receivable. Now see, $300 how I have broken into three parts. First part is inventory $100. Second part is cash balance $100. And third part is accounts receivable $100. All are current assets and still his working capital is $300. You're getting my point? So this, working capital will be broken into different parts, into different current assets which are required for day-to-day running. Now see the scenario number 3. In scenario number 3, I have assumed that supposedly that Mr. X, Mr. Ramlal, who has started a new business, he has contacted a person, a supplier of raw materials, supplier of inventory, and that supplier has agreed to supply the goods on credit. I repeat, Mr. X, Mr. Ramlal, who has started a business, contacted with the supplier, and that supplier has agreed to give the goods or inventory on credit to this supplier, to this individual. So now his inventory from $100 has increased to $200. I am assuming that $100 of inventory he has purchased on credit from that supplier. Mr. X has purchased on credit from that supplier. So the point is total current assets will be, now see to it. In scenario 3, $400. I have kept as $400. But the point is how I have taken 400. Suppliers have given the credit off. I think it is better if I write down 300 only. 300 only. I will tell you why I am writing down 300. Because net working capital in this case again will be $300. How I have calculated 300 I will tell you. Now $100 of inventory which he has purchased on credit, that will increase inventory, but along with that it will also increase accounts payable. It means this Mr. X has to pay something to that supplier. Accounts payable. So how much is current assets now? Inventory $200, cash balance $100, accounts receivable $100. That comes to 200 plus 100 plus 100, that is 400, minus, subtract, less accounts payable of $100. It means the net working capital, I will say the working capital is still here, $300, not of $400. So what we got from this case study, that what is working capital? Working capital is not current assets. Working capital is current assets minus current liabilities. And working capital current assets can be procured, can be purchased either from own funds or on credit with the help of accounts payable. So we will see what are the short-term sources of liquidity, what are the long-term sources of liquidity, and how we can calculate working capital. So scenario 3. Please write down, my dear friends. Please write down. I have broken this 300 working capital again into 4 parts. Inventory, $200. Cash, $100. Accounts receivable $100 minus. This is minus. Accounts payable of $100, and again working capital comes to $300. So please write on this note number 1, very important note and a highly testable note. From the above scenarios, it can be concluded that working capital can be financed by or purchased either by own funds. So I am telling you sources of funds, either through own funds, rather some of the current assets can also be funded by accounts payable. Some of the current assets can also be funded by accounts payable, and these are named as current liabilities. So current assets, current liabilities, current assets, current liabilities. So accounts payable is a part of current liability. In current liability, there can be so many examples. For example, outstanding expenses is a current liability. Outstanding overheads is a current liability. Accrued expenses is a current liability. Trade payables is a current liability. Accounts payable is a current liability. So we will discuss in the later outcomes that what is the meaning of this. Now please write on this how I have calculated working capital of $300 in a tabular method. Firstly, I have written all current assets. Inventory is current asset. Cash balance is current assets. Accounts receivable is current assets. So $200 plus $100 plus $100 minus accounts payable of $100. Again, my working capital is $300. So formula for working capital will be current assets minus current liabilities. Current assets minus current liabilities. Hope you have enjoyed this lecture, So in this today's lecture, I have just given you a brief idea that what is working capital. I am not able to show that your curriculum because of copyright issues. I will be showing you in 4th or 5th lecture, and those demos I will be uploading in Google Drive, and that link I will be sharing in this YouTube only. So my dear friends, we have started reading 38th and lecture number 1. I have just given you an brief idea about working capital. Be happy, be jolly,